I'm Renee Roth Powers, Doctor of Physical Therapy and owner of Fundamental Motion Physical Therapy and Athletic Recovery. If you are watching this video, you are probably either thinking about using a standing desk or maybe you've already improvised one on your own on a tabletop or a desk. Possibly you've purchased one of the new models on the market. Maybe you've heard that sitting is the new smoking and that standing is better. Or maybe you're uncomfortable at your sitting desk and think that standing might eliminate some of that discomfort. Whatever the case, you still need to use good habits and good posture when you use a standing desk. If you stand with bad habits and bad postures, you're going to be a lot worse off than sitting with good habits and postures over both the short and long term. I have a series of standing desk videos on this channel, including videos about whether a standing desk is a good choice for you and how to avoid common bad standing postures that people tend to use or develop over time. So look for those on my channel or blog. In this video, we are going to look at what good habits and good postures are at your standing desk and how to correctly set up your own desk to encourage standing postures that will prevent or minimize both short-term discomfort and prevent long-term issues that can develop over time. So one of the first things to talk about is just your standing desk. How are you going to set your standing desk up? This is an improvised standing desk, and there are many ways to improvise a standing desk where you can set it up correctly for your body to have a good standing technique with things that are just found around the house. My husband happened to have this stand, which is used commonly in construction, and he took a board and screwed on a flat top, and I'm using this as my standing desk for this video. If you have a kitchen island, you could use boxes, you could use reams of paper or books. You always have an option of purchasing a standing desk that is in a permanent setup for you to use your computer correctly and comfortably if you have the budget and the flexibility for doing that. The first thing to know about using a standing desk, and this is critically important, is that your body is not designed to stand all day any more than it's designed to sit all day. Your body, your spine, your neck, your knees, your entire body is designed to change positions regularly, to distribute the load across all of your joints, your muscles, and tissues, and to promote circulation of joint fluid to keep those joints healthy. So it is critical that you limit your time at your standing desk and break up your sessions if you want to stay pain-free and make the most of using a standing desk. The best guideline I can give you is a 45-minute maximum for any given standing desk session, and definitely less if you are new to it. And then take some time to move around for at least a couple of minutes, preferably more, and then switch to a sitting position for your next 45-minute session. Research shows that our bodies accommodate to positions. Our muscles start to stretch, our joints start to fatigue. Once you reach the 50-minute mark or longer, once you move out of those positions after 50 minutes or longer, your body doesn't just spring back. So the 45-minute guideline for that being the maximum amount of time is so you're not altering your body in a way that it's not going to just spring back from. You don't want to make long-term hazardous changes by sustaining any position that'll create harm to your system. I encourage you to use a timer to keep track of your standing. It is that important. And if you need help setting up your chair and sitting desk for comfort, you'll find videos on that subject on my channel or on my blog as well. So now that we've clarified that you shouldn't try to stand at a desk all day, let's look at how you can integrate standing into your workday by looking at some key steps you can take to set up a standing desk correctly for your individual body to best encourage good posture and minimize the likelihood of short-term and long-term discomfort and pain. The first step to setting up your standing desk workstation is to set up the correct desk height. And the desk height is dependent on the position that supports your arms, with your elbow at about 90 degrees. And I'm going to show you a picture and an example of why that is so critically important. Supporting the weight of your arms takes the strain and pressure off of this region that is at the upper part of the neck, the upper part of the shoulder blades, and this area between the shoulder blades that often gets achy if you've spent hours at your computer, whether you're sitting or you're standing. And the issue is that the weight of our arms hangs off of these muscles that attach the arms to the rest of our body. The actual measured weight of your arms, depending on your overall body weight, is somewhere around 7 pounds if you're 130 pounds, and then can go up to 12 pounds a piece for each arm if you're 225 pounds, and that relative increase just gets larger if you're a larger person. So imagine for a person who's 150 pounds holding on to milk jugs in each arm and just letting those jugs hang there. How long do you think you would feel comfortable letting that amount of weight, holding on to a gallon of milk in each arm? Eventually it's going to pull on your neck and your upper shoulders. It's going to become very uncomfortable. Now I want you to think about somebody coming underneath that gallon of milk in each arm and holding on to it. Can you imagine the relief that you would feel in your arms, your upper shoulders, and your neck? That's what the standing desk height is going to do for you, okay? So if we look at two examples here of this person standing, they do not have their arms supported by the desk. The correct position is a position where, yes, your elbow is bent at 90 degrees, but it actually feels like the top of the desk is pushing your arms upward a little bit, and you're going to feel that relief through your shoulders and your neck region. So let's look at the correct desk height and compare that to desk heights that aren't quite supportive enough. In this picture, we're looking at the correct standing desk height and comparing it to two other positions that are almost right but not quite. So in this first picture, the desk is the correct height for me. My elbow is at about 90 degrees, and what's really important is that I can feel that the top of the desk actually supports the weight of my arms. My arms aren't hanging off of the muscles at the tops of my shoulders and the back of my neck. If we look at where my forearm is resting, we can see that a good portion of my forearm is being supported by the top of the desk. And in this position, I'm still able to maintain a neutral wrist position. That's really important. Now in the next picture, we can see that I'm standing at the desk and my forearms are at an angle that's smaller than 90 degrees. That means that angle is sharper. And you can see that my arm is hitting the desk at just one tiny point. Because my elbows are bent more significantly than 90 degrees, the top of that desk cannot support the weight of my arms. All it's doing is supporting my elbow in a bent position. It's not actually lifting the weight of that milk jug from the bottom. That's really what you need. So this desk height is too high. It needs to be lowered. In the final picture, again, it looks pretty subtle. My elbow isn't quite bent to 90 degrees. I've got a portion of my forearm that is in fact resting on the top of the desk, but it is not enough support to take the weight of my arms off of my neck and shoulders. I'm still going to feel that drawing discomfort right up here in the top of my neck and my upper shoulders because, again, my arms are too low in order for the desk to actually give them that uplifting support from the bottom. You have to have the desk in the position of picture number one, and just going along with the picture isn't good enough. You have to feel like the weight of your arms is being supported by the top of the desk, not that your arms are just merely resting lightly on top of the desk. So another important consideration about correct desk height is your wrist position. What your wrists do naturally really depends on the stiffness of your wrist and also the tension in the forearm and wrist muscles. So for me, I can rest my forearms on the top of the standing desk at the correct height, and I have a fairly neutral wrist. I don't have a big bend here in my wrist where my wrists have to tilt upward in order to work effectively on the keyboard. But the person in the next picture does have that challenge. He has his arms supported by the top of the desk, and if he doesn't have some form of support that elevates his wrist just a little bit, he gets too much of a bend right here at his wrist. So what we have done in order to address that is to take a small towel roll right here, and you just take a small hand towel, you roll it up lengthwise, and you place it underneath both wrists so both wrists can rest on it, and then that way your hands can be in a neutral position. They can drop down just a little bit from being supported by that towel roll, and right here at the back of the wrist is then a neutral position. We have a straight line here rather than a bend, and that is the way that you support your wrist. You can order a very specific pad for supporting underneath the wrist. That towel roll will do a nice job, but if you feel like you want something that's absolutely dedicated and specific to this position, then you can go ahead and investigate finding a wrist support for use while you're working at the standing desk. Now we're going to go to step number 2, which is setting your screen in the correct position. Getting your screen height in the correct position all depends on your head position first. So what you want is you want to have your head in a neutral position. Your nose should be parallel to the floor, and the curve in your neck should be relatively upright. You should not be tilting your head in order to look at the screen. You position your head in the right postural position, and then you put the screen within your field of vision. So these are 3 examples of different screen heights. The first screen height is the appropriate screen height. So if you look at my nose, it is level with the ground. I can look straight ahead and see the field of view that I want to of that screen. My neck is in a neutral position. So it's got just a tiny little subtle curve to it, but it is relatively straight up and down. It's not tilted back, it's not tilted forward. In the second position, this screen is too high for me. I have to tilt my nose upward if we take that arrow straight out, and you can see at the back of my neck, it creates this curve. That curve, if you're tilting your head upward to look at the screen, is frequently responsible for creating compression or pressure at a specific vertebrae of your neck or between 2 specific vertebrae. And that's why it's so important to have a neutral head and neck position. In the third picture, the screen is too low. If we draw that arrow down from the nose, it's pointed straight down toward that screen. And what's going to happen here is the back of the neck and the upper back are going to feel stressed and a degree of strain from looking downward at that screen for a significant amount of time. So again, the guideline for the right screen height is nose parallel to the floor, head level, and a neutral curve behind your neck. You want to make sure that you're using your eyes to look at the computer screen and not using your head position to put that screen in the correct field of view. So the next consideration is what happens when you're using a laptop. So if you're using a laptop computer, one of the issues is that the screen and the keyboard are attached. So that presents a unique challenge to getting the screen position correct and having you in the right position for using your keyboard. In this picture, the desk height is correct for all of these pictures. So we're just looking at the effects of the laptop and what that does to the head position. So in this first picture, I have the laptop open and the screen is relatively vertical. It's just tilted a little bit and we have this degree of angle, and you can see that I have to look down. I have to tilt my head forward. My nose is not level with the ground. My neck tilts forward here. And again, same thing with a screen or a desk height that's too low. I'm going to start feeling fatigue at the back of the neck and at the upper part of the shoulders. So that is not an ideal screen position. Next, what I've done is I've tilted that screen back just a little bit so it's not so vertical. This allows me to put my head in a better position. It's closer to neutral, but because of the keyboard position and the fact that my forearms need to rest on the desk and my wrist needs to be neutral with no bend, I can't lift that screen up so it comes into my line of view. So I'm still looking downward and tilting my nose downward in order to look at that screen. My best recommendation for using a laptop while also using a standing desk is to get an independent keyboard. So you want a keyboard that plugs into the laptop so you can use the laptop as a screen and you can elevate it. So what we've done here is I've raised the laptop on a set of books and plugged in a remote keyboard. So now I can position the screen exactly where I need it. My nose and head position are much more neutral if we draw that arrow. My neck does not have to curve or adapt to this position. And this is really the best way if you're using a laptop for a significant amount of time, for your entire workday, for several days a week, and you're going to be standing and even sitting for that matter. It's really best to be able to set your screen at the right height and then to use the keyboard from the surface where you're either sitting or standing. Our next example is if you happen to wear progressive or graduated lenses. So if you have graduated lenses, that means that the prescription lens that's best for reading or for computer distance is in the bottom part of your eyeglass lens. And that can make it really challenging to get the screen in the correct position so your head isn't tilted. And most frequently your head is going to tilt up so you can lift that portion of the reading lens up into your visual range. And something happens which I call the graduated lens paradox. And that means if the screen is too high, like picture number 1, I have to lift my nose up in order to be able to see through the bottom part of that lens. And this curves the back of the neck. It's going to create stress and strain back here at the back region of the neck, and that is not an ideal position. And then what happens when the screen's too low? Well, if the screen's too low, you still have to tilt your head up in order to look through that reading or computer distance portion of your lens. So in picture number 2, the screen is too low. I have to tilt my nose upward in order to get that visual field in the right part of the lens. You can see that there's a significant curve at the back of my neck, and there's going to be stress and strain right back here, and that might flow downward into the upper back. So that is not ideal. And then oftentimes what happens for people is that the neck also follows the curve of the upper back. So instead of the head just tilting up, the upper back hunches forward and then the head and the neck lift upward. So if we look at me in this final position, my upper back is curved and then my neck is curved back. And what we have again is we have a head that is trying to look through the reading portion of the lenses. My best suggestion is that you get a pair of glasses that are specifically prescribed and made for use at the computer, that you have computer lenses so you can see through that, you can see the computer through that entire lens and you don't have to shift your head in order to see the screen clearly. So those are the most important topics for your desk setup. And now I'm going to talk about some things that can make your setup more comfortable. So there are a couple of techniques and a couple of considerations that might make standing more comfortable for you. The first thing is that a lot of times the complaints about using a standing desk are leg fatigue and achy, uncomfortable feet. What I recommend is that you pick a pair of shoes to wear while you're at your standing desk that you would wear for several hours of visiting a museum. Standing still on your feet is frequently uncomfortable. So you want to have shoes with a good insole, with good support. If you have flat feet especially, you want to have arch support, orthotics if you have prescribed orthotics. And you might want to consider some sort of standing mat. They make mats very specific to standing desks. There are also nice cushiony mats for use in the kitchen. Something that's going to give your feet a little bit of relief, and that can make a difference for your back, make a difference for achy knees and hips as well. So that's my first suggestion for making your time at the standing desk more comfortable. The second thing is to get something to put one foot forward on. something like a book, a couple of reams of paper that you can use that's between 4 and 6 inches, where you can place one foot forward just to help redistribute your weight. So in this first picture, I actually have a cookie tin left over for Christmas. It's about 4 inches tall. And I put one foot forward on it. And what does that do? That helps me shift my weight in a way that I'm distributing my weight a little bit more forward. That takes the line of pressure off of my body. It decreases the compression on my back. It decreases the compression on my hips. And it just helps me shift my weight into a different but supportive position that diminishes that sustained wear and tear on a specific part of my body while I'm standing still. In this next picture, I have a dictionary, which I'm actually using right now. And one thing that's really important is that when you rest one leg forward on this, you want to rest your legs in a position where they're directly underneath your hips. So you've got some width between your feet that gives you a base of support. And you want to think about putting a little bit of weight on that front leg and weight through the back leg as well. So you're not shifting all the way back and just standing with one leg forward, but actually that you have a little bit of weight shifted forward through that book. So it's as though your body weight is dropping down between your feet. In the third picture, you want to make sure that you don't have your legs crossed over in front of you, because that really decreases the effectiveness of having something underneath one foot in order to support you. One area that I feel a significant difference with this position is actually my lower back. So I'm going to pull up a picture where I'm using a flat of cat food that I always have readily around the house. So I've got my foot forward on this flat of cat food. And what I want you to look at first in this set of pictures is when I'm standing with both feet on the floor, my lower back is curved. And you can see that curve right here. When I stand for a long period of time, that's the area for me that starts to feel achy. My body starts to feel achy and stiff right back here. And when I put one foot in picture number 3 forward on that container of cat food, what you can see is that my spine becomes more straight. It becomes more neutral. And that really helps my back relax. So that's something that might help you as well. The other thing in this picture that can really be helpful is the use of this chair. So I'm standing here with a chair in front of me, and the time to use the chair is when you don't have to type and you don't have to use the keyboard at all. So if you're participating in a Zoom meeting, if you're giving a webinar, having something in front of you where you can have some distance between your face and the screen, but you have the support of the chair to shift your weight just slightly forward, to rest your forearms on it and just give you a little bit, again, of a shift. So your weight distribution while you're standing is just slightly different, can make you more comfortable and give you a significant sense of relief. Sometimes standing, especially if you're presenting or you're really participating in a meeting, you have more energy, but at the same time, you want to have something there that can offer you a little shift in position and just a degree of support. And you would want to select a chair ahead of time that's the right height for you in order to rest your body on and give you that little bit of relief and ability to change your standing position just a hair. So my goal for creating this video was to give you the guidelines for setting up a standing desk that gives you the best opportunity for success while transitioning to a standing desk, especially if you've never used one or you're just starting to use one, to avoid common pitfalls that create pain and discomfort that then might encourage you to give up or not to really recognize how you can make yourself feel more comfortable. Some of these guidelines are very subtle, and so the difference between being comfortable and being miserable or having fatigue or achiness can be just a couple of degrees of either your desk height or the screen position. And then using some of the techniques that I gave you for making yourself more comfortable, giving you the opportunity to shift your position around, redistribute your weight, and take focal stress off of your body that accumulates when you've been standing for a period of time. I hope these guidelines help you, and I wish you the best of success using your standing desk.